Okay, I think I'm live. Hello, everyone. Let's get into this. So, today's topic is about how do you plan for the dissertation and what are the five key decisions you must make. Now, if you don't know me, I am Dr. Marvette Lacy. I work with doctoral students to write and finish their dissertations in 12 months or less. I specialize in qualitative dissertations, mostly within education, higher education, sociology, psychology, humanities, helping type um, fields. And I want to talk to you about five decisions you need to make. Now, I am not someone who is just here to tell you what you think you want, in terms of most of you think if you had deadlines, if you knew exactly what to do, that you would do it. And I want to let you know that is not true. In my experience of helping over 50 people become doctor, I could tell you this to be true, that you need more than just knowing what to do. Most of you can figure it out. Most of you are highly intelligent. It's not that you don't know what to do. It's like, how do you get yourself to do the things you know to do? And that is what my superpower is. Let me bring my desk down some so I can look at my notes and make sure I am talking in the microphone. But if you are watching with me live, let me know. Say hi. I would love to connect with y'all. Before I get into these five decisions, I want to talk about the three obstacles that I usually see people face when they are starting a dissertation, the middle of the dissertation, what have you. The first one, all or nothing thinking. We tend to take an all or nothing approach to any goal, especially the dissertation. Let me give you an example of what I mean. So, say for instance, you're working on your proposal and you're like, I want to finish my proposal before the spring semester is over with, because that's where we're currently just started the spring semester, right? And you think that you're going to make a plan. You're going to, maybe your tool of choice is an Excel spreadsheet. Maybe your tool of choice is a regular notebook like this or a planner. And you sit down and you're like, okay, I'm going to finish a dissertation in a year. So that means I need to have my proposal done by May. I'm going to collect data over the summer. I'm going to wrap this thing up by Thanksgiving, right? And let's say, for instance, you're working, January is going smooth, and then February hits you, and you have like a family event or a life event that takes you out for a minute, meaning you need to go grieve. Maybe it's an unexpected expense. Maybe you need to go take care of someone, and it knocks you off of your regular routine. And so, whereas in January, you were showing up every day, 5 a.m. club, putting words on a page, February comes in and you're like, words on a page. I know I could read an article. And you may mistakenly think that that means you failed to the point of you're never going to hit your goal, and you're absolutely not going to hit your goal by Thanksgiving. If you have been here, let me know. Thank you, Decent Rebel. How are you doing this Monday morning? But like, you think what happens in February is going to influence you being able to be done by November. And instead of letting this February incident be an isolated incident, you end up making it mean so much more about you, about how you don't ever follow through, how you can't ever do what you say you're going to do, how you can't ever hit a deadline. Like, we start to go down this whole shame spiral. And all that happened was an incident came up, you had to pivot, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to still meet your goal by November. But you have to be careful of this, because I've seen this sort of thinking derail person after person. Like, it derails me. Like, if I get caught up in the all or nothing thinking, I don't make the progress on my goal, because I make it mean that one setback, one mistake means it's never going to happen for me. So let me know if you relate to that. The second thing that I see people, the obstacle is they become obsessed with page numbers. You're like, I was coaching a client last week, and she said, oh, my chair wants me to have at least a 30-page literature review. She's like, I only have 24 pages. So I got to grind and hustle to get the six remaining pages. And I'm like, that's great. But you do know that you could have a 50-page literature review if you would just allow yourself to sit down and carefully edit the draft that you have right now. And she was like, what? I'm like, yes, because the progress, the gold is made in the editing process. And y'all kind of know this intuitively, which is why you try to read and write and edit the perfect sentence at one time, is why you spend hours and hours working on one sentence, because somewhere in your nervous system and your brain, you know the importance of editing your work. Most of you just do it too soon. Most of you try to edit words that are not on the page. this is how you spend hours trying to make the perfect one sentence that you've been working on for days and weeks. I'm telling on somebody. But if you allow the process to be the process, and you allow each thing to be its own process, like you allow reading to be a process, writing to be a process, editing to be a process, and you separate it, you will go further faster. But somewhere we've been given the message that if I can read and write and edit all at once and I can get it right the first time, then I won't have to go back. And I don't know who lied to us, but the writing process is one that you cannot skip. The researching and reading part being that, the writing being the writing, and then the editing being the editing. It doesn't matter if you, on your first draft, thinking, oh, I'm going to be so meticulous with every individual sentence that when I turn it in, they won't have anything to say. You're going to set yourself up because you're going to spend all that time and energy. And then you're going to give that draft that you are so attached to your chair, to whomever to review it, and they're going to mark it up and tear it apart and tell you all the ways that you can improve it. And now your feelings are going to be hurt because you're like, but I spent so much time and energy getting it that way, all for you to tear it apart. Yes, because that's writing. You cannot skip the feedback process. What I mean by this is I tell my clients, just go ahead and prepare your soul and your heart that you're going to have to rewrite every chapter at least 5 times. Let's just go ahead and accept it. And if that is hard for you to accept, friend, I will need you to reconsider becoming a doctor, because writing for clear, concise, structured, well put together writing, I need you to embrace that you're going to have to write multiple drafts. There is not a seasoned writer out here who is not writing multiple drafts. An example that I've been focused on a lot lately is Stephen King. Do y'all know who Stephen King is? I mean, probably one of the best writers of all time. But Stephen King is notably is known for writing at least 4 drafts per book. If you ever seen a Stephen King novel, and I wish I had one to show you, but I do have a book. Hold on. So like this is not a Stephen King novel, but let's just say his novels look like this. Like, look how many pages this is, and he's rewriting this, and she probably rewrote this. Sarah Moss probably rewrote this at least 4 times, if not more. We're talking 800 pages that I'm going to rewrite at least 4 times to make sure that it is clear and it is concise for the reader and it is informative and it has all the information. Why do you think, student who's brand new to writing, to dissertating, to researching, that you're not going to have to rewrite something for a time if someone who has published tens and hundreds of things continues to rewrite things over and over? So if you can just embrace that, you will save yourself a lot of heartache. And this is why I talk so much. If you've been around me for any length of time, you have heard me say, focus on writing one shitty paragraph at a time. Don't focus on, I need to write the entire proposal. Yeah, you know that. You got that as your goal. But right now, the step that's in front of you is focusing on one shitty paragraph at a time. Because if you showed up every day and you're like, my only job is to write a shitty paragraph, and you did that for 2 weeks straight, go with me. You did that for 2 weeks straight. You have at least 14 shitty paragraphs, if not more. We're talking what, 3 to 4 pages, single space. Now, when you go to edit those shitty paragraphs, we haven't read anything yet, but when you go to edit those shitty paragraphs, now you got something that was like 3 to 4 pages. Now we're talking like 6 to 8 pages. Because when you're doing editing the proper way, when you actually look at your writing and you like want to make it clear and concise, now we're talking 6 to 8 pages. Now, when you go to read, because this is how I encourage students to go through this process. When you go to read literature, you know exactly what literature you're looking for because you know what argument you just crafted through your shitty paragraphs. Now you're reading and you're like, oh, yeah, that's a dope point. I could put that there. Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. Let me put that in that draft. Now you got a 10-page draft. This is how I get clients to write a chapter in 30 days or less, because it is about the process in which they are approaching the writing and not just the focus on, I got to get these page numbers. Right? If you have questions, let me know. And then the last obstacle that I see students go against is a lack of self care. You're like, you know what? This self care thing, these emotions, I'm going to deal with that when I'm doctor. I'm going to deal with that when I graduate. And guess what? You won't make it to graduation because you keep trying to ignore your emotions. I'm sure y'all have heard about the whole beach ball analogy where you have, like the stripe red and yellow and is it blue or green? The ball that you use to play volleyball in the water. If you try to like submerge that underneath water and you like using all of your body weight, it's going to still be so challenging to keep it underneath the water. And eventually the pressure is going to become so great that it's going to pop up. That is what's going to happen to you at some point throughout this process. If you keep thinking, oh, I could just ignore my emotions. I don't have to deal with it. Like, yeah, I know I should sleep. Yeah, I know I should drink water. Yeah, I know I should take better care of myself, but I'll do that later. Because all what's important is becoming doctor. But if you get to being doctor and your health is not intact, you have no relationships, you can't pay a bill, you are struggling in all ways. Is it worth it? Now, some of you might be like, yeah, it's worth it. I need you to sit and really think about that. Is it worth you losing everything else that you've worked for this goal? Because it doesn't have to be this way to become doctor. You don't have to struggle in that way to become doctor. You can take care of yourself. You can continue to live your life and still become doctor. This is to the people who are like, I just need to get this over with so I can get back to living my life. I just need to get this off of my back, my chest, whatever body part, so I can get back to living my life. What if you can continue to live your life right now? What if you don't have to wait until you're a doctor to live your life, to travel? And you might say, well, how do I do those things without constantly thinking about the things I have to read and write? And what I want to tell you, and it's going to hurt your feelings a little bit, is there's going to always be something you're worried about. You're going to always have a goal that you're like, I got to go do this. Like, think about you and your life. Like, seriously, reflect over the past even 10 years. When have you not been without a huge goal? When have you not been trying to chase some sort of accomplishment? Why is the dissertation different? Why is being a doctor different? I get that people sell you this dream that your life is going to radically change afterwards. It won't. You're still going to be with you. Now, don't misinterpret me about, because someone asked me then, what's the point of becoming doctor? I need you to know. I need you to know. That brings me to decision number one. Why do you want to be doctor? I have 5 decisions for you. The first one is why. Why do you want to be a doctor? Now, you want to stun on, I almost cuss, but it's YouTube, so I got to be careful. You want to stun on people, right? You just want people to call you doctor. That's great. I love your reason. I just want you to have a real reason, not the reason you say on job interviews, not the reason you tell people when you like schmoozing at the conferences. What's your real reason? I'm talking it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you are up in the middle of the night because you're worried about the next deadline. What are you going to tell yourself to keep going? Like, what is that reason for doing this? Because you think, oh, if I know that I'm making progress, then of course I want to show up. No, you won't. No, you won't. Again, go back to your past. How many times, like, think about your last degree, because y'all got multiple degrees. Think about your last degree. I bet you were telling yourself the same thing. Like, if you have a bachelor's or a master's, I bet you were telling yourself at the middle of the night, when I get this degree, everything's going to be great. Everything's going to change. They're not going to be able to tell me nothing. And then you got to graduation. And before you even got to graduation, you were on to the next goal, telling yourself that same thing about the next thing. You still need a why though. The decision number 2. When are you going to have a complete shitty draft of your dissertation done? We need to work backwards. When are you going to have a complete draft? I'm talking in a shitty draft. I know I said I wasn't going to cuss and Google was going to get me, but we here. When are you going to have a complete draft done? If you are someone who wants to graduate in December, I need you to plan that at least by Halloween, you have a complete shitty draft of your dissertation done. Because right now it is January 8th. And if you want to graduate in December, which is usually like the second or third week of December, your I think the graduate school needs it like a week or two before graduation. So then that means you would have to defend at least a week or two before that because you want to give yourself time to do any edits, format checks, or any other paperwork. So then that's moving us up to about Thanksgiving. then your committee needs 2 weeks or more, depending on your program, to review that shitty draft. So then that's moving us up to somewhere in the first week of November. So if you can aim for Halloween or a little bit before Halloween to have a complete draft of it done and you gave it to your chair and now y'all might have a few edits, they're going to most likely say, go ahead and submit it to the committee so at least they can have it. You can still work on the edits and then you can defend it and be all good to go. Right. So then if we're working on Halloween for you to have a completed draft of your dissertation, then that means September and October should be reserved for you writing your final chapters, going back and forth, doing any edits, maybe even August to October. The summer, let's say May, June, July, then is IRB collecting data, analyzing that data. So then if we continue to work backwards, that means you should have a shitty draft of your proposal by spring break or a little bit after spring break. So then you can use the rest of April, do any small edits, defend, and be ready to go. You see how I did that in terms of working backwards? It may seem like it's a long way from now until Halloween, but when you start putting real deadlines like that, it becomes very clear how much time you have available. Right. So you're going to need to know a why because that's accelerated. When programs tell you that it's only going to take you a year to do your dissertation, that's some great marketing. And as someone who's been in business for 7 years, I could tell you that is amazing marketing. Whenever I need some assistance, some inspiration, maybe, or like just to see how the greats do it, I just go to higher ed because they are some of the best marketers. People who tell you that it's gonna take a year and they don't have a dissertation course, they don't have any, like, formalized structure in the program to assist you, it's marketing. So don't feel bad if you've been in your program for a year, 2 years, 7 years, 10 years, and you're still over here like, "I don't know how to do the dissertation." It's because the program was not structured to help you to do that, even though it's a requirement, right? But that's not what today's conversation is about. I'm digressing, let me go on. So the decision number 1 is why you're doing it. Decision number 2 is, okay, what are going to be your dates when you have a full dissertation? And I hope my internet isn't acting up too bad, y'all. So let me know if it is. Decision number 3 is what will you do? What will you do when your why isn't enough? Right? I asked you to decide or to tell me or to tell yourself what's your why and why you want to do this dissertation. What are you going to do? Because you're going to have moments when your why isn't enough. When you like, I don't need another degree. I got multiple. I remember there were many nights I was like, I don't need this degree. I got a master's degree. I got an undergrad degree. Like where I come from, the fact that I graduated high school was more than enough. Why do I think I need this degree? I could just walk away. Like I seriously wanted to go work at Trader Joe's. I was like, I don't even need to be nobody's corporation or institution or nothing. I can go work at Trader Joe's with my Hawaiian shirt and the bell, and I can like have unlimited supply of cookie butter and all the like new foods. I could just go do that. So what are you going to do when you're having moments like that of like maybe yours is in Trader Joe's, right? Maybe yours is another place. But what are you going to do when you like, I don't need this? What data and evidence are you going to look at to say, but you made this progress, you got to keep going. Most of you like to look at the data of, well, I put so much time into this and I put so much money into this and I put so much tears into this. That time, money, or tears don't help you to put words on a page to have a completed dissertation. And so my point is, so what? You can't get that back. You can't get that money back. You can't get that time back. You can't get any of that back. So what are going to be like the other evidence and the data that you're going to look at to say, because I made this amount of progress, because I did this, I've done these things, it doesn't make logical sense to quit. An example would be I wrote a whole proposal in 3 months, or I showed up for 30 days straight and I wrote a shitty paragraph, or I have a 100-page document of a proposal. Like, why would I leave when I'm this close? Those are tangible things that you can look at and be like, oh, that doesn't make sense. But the time was going to pass anyway. The money you most likely were going to spend anyway. If it wasn't on this degree, it was going to be on another degree. Like, you need to just tell yourself the truth. But you can't get those things back. And if you don't believe me that the time and money doesn't matter, go look up the term sunk cost fallacy on Google. Sunk cost fallacy. It is when we think we put too much time and money into a thing, and that's why we don't want to give up, when it would probably save us or give us more time and money if we did quit the thing, which is why I want you to be clear on why you're doing this. But if it's because you're like, no, I got a solid, I went from not being able to write to having a 100-page proposal in 3 months, that's why I'm not going to quit. Because I've been meeting with my chair every month and telling them this is what I need and expecting them to do their job and helping to guide me through this process. That's why I'm not leaving, because that person walked up to me at that conference when I presented a little bit about my research and told me how much it meant to them. That's why I'm not quitting. I want y'all to start looking at different things as to why you are not going to quit this process, because you're going to have so many nights, so many days, so many moments where you're like, I don't need this. I don't need this. I could just leave. Mm. How will you speak to yourself in those moments? Decide right now. How will you speak to yourself when you feel like quitting? Are you going to talk shit to yourself? Are you going to be like, see, there you go. You about to do what you do all the time? Because that's not helpful. If shame was going to work, y'all, it would have worked by now. How do you want to speak to yourself in those moments? The last decision is, how will you know when it's time for a break? I ask my clients this all the time. How will you know when it's time for you to take a break? Because there will be times where you're getting really close to being burnt out. How will you know when it's time to take a break? And how will you allow yourself to take a break? I ask my clients every week to take a break, to have at least one day you don't do nothing. You go sit down, which is why I talk so much about you only need 10 hours a week for the dissertation. Because think about this, if you're working 10 hours a week on your dissertation, you have time to travel. You have time to be with friends. You have time to scroll on TikTok or YouTube and just do nothing. You have time to do that. But when you are constantly obsessing in your head without a clear plan, without making these key decisions, you're just going to keep looping and not having time or energy. And then I'm going to end with this. I tell clients to follow 3 rules. If you want to finish the dissertation in 12 months or less, 3 rules. Number 1, every day follow the scholar basics. The scholar basics are 5 things that you do to take care of yourself so that you have the energy to show up for the dissertation process. Number 1, drink 64 ounces of water. I just put a little drinking enhancer in mine, but it's just 64 ounces of water. Number 2, go lay down somewhere. Sleep or rest for 7 hours a night. You most likely are not sleepy. You need to go to sleep. Number 3, move your body. Sitting down writing a dissertation will backfire. Y'all, I was in what is that, physical therapy, because I wanted to sit on the couch all the time and work on a dissertation. When you're like this, your body, it starts breaking down on you. So if you get up and you move around, you help your body. Number 4, journal out your thoughts, or just journal generally for 10 minutes. If you have a journal practice, your writing will be clearer. Your writing will naturally improve. Just you journaling out random thoughts, your writing will significantly improve, because you're removing all of the random junk that's just floating around your head. You're giving it a space to go. And then when you approach your dissertation writing, you're approaching it with a clear, organized mind that can move faster because it's not trying to weed through all the random thoughts you have. And then number 5, write a shitty paragraph every day. A shitty paragraph is just a collection of 4 sentences that you put together and called the paragraph. It don't make sense. You didn't read anything. There's no citation. It's probably the worst thing you've ever written, but it's a shitty paragraph. And if you could do that every day, you'll be done with your dissertation in no time. So number 1 is to follow the scholar basics every day. Number 2, evaluate and create a weekly plan. Every Sunday inside of the Institute, we come together and we evaluate what was working last week. What are you celebrating from last week? What do we need to tweak from last week? Most of you know how to make a plan, but most of you are not evaluating your plan. You don't know what works for you. You just keep doing the same thing over and over, hoping that eventually it'll work out for you. And you know what that's called? Insanity. Do you want to practice insanity in this process? You have to evaluate, what are your wins? What's working for you? What's no longer working for you? How are you asking for help? And what do you need to focus on during this season of your life? Because every week is not going to be the same. So it doesn't make sense to tell yourself, I must do the exact same thing in the exact same way every week in order to finish the dissertation, because your life is dynamic. Your life will change. Some months are going to be easier than others. Some months are going to be busier than others. When you go to make a plan every week, you are accounting for right now, my real life looks like this, and this is what I reasonably can do this week. Not what my ideal version of me can do. This is what I can reasonably do this week. And so we go ahead and we make a plan. Every week, you want to identify what are the three things that I can focus on for this week. So if you are at the beginning of this dissertation process, maybe your three things looks like I'm going to make these decisions that Dr. Lacy told me to make. I'm going to identify a clear topic for my dissertation, and I am going to write my chair and tell them, hey, this is what I'm thinking about as a topic. That could be what your plan looks like. Next week, we'll evaluate how did that work for you and then create another three steps. Okay. And then the last thing, meet with your chair. I like incorporated both of those at the same time, but you want to meet with your chair at least once a month. You want to either meet with them face to face on Zoom or send a very detailed email that says, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is how it's going for me. Here's where I'm getting stuck. Here's the questions that I have. Here's where I think you can help me. Thank you. And doing that every month, because most of you won't let your chairs do their job. Their job is to guide you. Their job is to answer your questions. Their job is to review feed your pages to let you know if you're on track or not. But if you don't show up, if you're hiding from them, if you're avoiding them, they can't do their job. And if they can't do their job, you know what you can't do? Become a doctor. So you have to communicate with them. All right. If you have questions, let me know in the comments. If you want to work further with me, come and join us inside of the Institute. It is a membership where I help give you the structure, the support, and the systems that you need to finish the dissertation in 12 months or less. All the links are below. I'm going to call it, and I will see y'all next week. Bye, y'all.